Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Recoveryview live show. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, or if you're going to watch us in the future. I know I have a lot of different internet outlets through YouTube and Facebook and others. So I just want to thank you for joining us. This is our 58th edition of Recoveryview. I've been working on this online journal for over 10 years. And we're looking for authors always, because this is an educational online website from the beginning, where we will put information out about recovery and specifically professional articles. And so for you, as if you're a professional or not, you can go to recoveryview.com. We have archived articles from the last 10 years, hundreds and hundreds of articles with different topics: eating disorder, gambling. They're all done by professionals in our field and credentialed. So you can go through, read the articles, and reach out to those doctors and professionals if you have questions about their practice or anything that they're working on. So for this Recoveryview edition, we have so many wonderful articles. I'm going to be bringing up my guest speakers right now. But in the meanwhile, the other articles that you'll find on Recoveryview that was sent out today to our email list and also online would be, hold on a second, Deb. I'm still talking. Deb.
Bye.
Yeah, I'll bring you guys up. Sorry, I just wanted to finish my little spiel and introduce you properly. Those are the girls. They're waiting. They can't wait to get up here. So they popped on up. But in the meanwhile, let me just tell you, we have another article from Spiro regarding ibogaine. He's been on what he calls an ibogaine tour, meaning he's been speaking and driving around the country, talking to hospitals and different people about ibogaine for alternative plant medicine, for detox and for treatment. And I go ahead and put that in there because, again, with Recoveryview, it can be a lot of different, modalities. So there's an article there with an update from Spiro. We have Mary Gordon, who has a beautiful article about recovery and family. We have TJ Woodward with his new book. And we also have a video from Paul that he put out. It's a documentary trailer. So if you go on to Recoveryview, we have additional articles for this month. But right now, I'm happy to bring up Carolyn Ross, and she's one of our guests tonight. She has our spotlight article, and she is going to be doing a presentation on her article for you. And she wrote, her company is Creative Life Solutions. So her article is Turning Obstacles into Opportunities. And you can go on there and read her article, but we're basically bringing the articles to life tonight with our two featured authors. And then we have Dr. Kristine Waters, who will be teaching us and speaking about her article, Humanizing Depersonalized Settings, and specifically, she's going to talk about improvisation and improv in a group setting. So help me welcome Kristine and Carolyn up to our screen. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Didn't mean to. I wanted to at least do some sort of introduction, but welcome to our show.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. We were just so excited. That's all. We can't wait in the green room.
You were like, oh, no, we're going up now. That's going to be the kind of night. Usually we have at least one guy and maybe, one girl or two women and men. But tonight it's just us girls. So we're going to have fun.
Okay.
It's going to be, we're going to have a good conversation. As I mentioned before briefly, this is a special edition because it's Recovery Month. I don't know if I got that far into my introduction, but September is Recovery Month. And we like to, in our industry, we like to utilize this month at least, for a lot of different activities, and we would have rallies and anything to celebrate recovery with our clients and with the community. And this year, I believe most of it was still on Zoom because of the pandemic.
The obvious.
I want to thank you for being part of this special edition for Recovery Month.
Thank you.
Or we're the Trinity. We're the powerful trinity here.
That's true.
Just keep bringing it, Carolyn. Keep bringing it.
All right. We're on it.
Okay, so Carolyn, welcome. And did you want to say a few words to our audience before we get started with more of the show?
Well, just that I'm so excited that you have made such a passionate mission to get this word of recovery and how transformative it is and important it is, and that you just tackle every opportunity to get messages out to people easily. And this is easy, the way you're doing it. So thank you, Josie.
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel honored to be a part of your 58th episode, or is that?
There are additions. We just started. Yeah, we started the live shows in June, or I think about almost a year ago because of the coronavirus. But otherwise, we've been doing editions for the last 10 years that we have an online journal, and so we've had many authors and authors that have passed. That have passed now. That we've had, and yeah, so you can go onto the website into the archive.
Yeah, the website is massive.
Yeah, it's
out there who hasn't gone to it. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
We've also put events together for the last 10 years through Recoveryview, where we would do conferences with CEUs and have our authors do, speaking and giving continuing education and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I'm honoring about being here and being with you, because you're so committed with so many levels of getting the word out. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And this has been a labor of love, and it's a gift to the community and to the public. So I just try to keep it going, and we, ATS sponsors it. So meaning that, the treatment center that my husband and I own. So we've been sponsoring it for 10 years, but it's been a really nice opportunity to have a platform where I don't have I don't have sponsors dictating, really what, they're all educational articles, and we have an editor so that they're appropriate, but we don't, they're not advertorials or anything like that.
So do you go by ATS, or do you say the full name, Addiction Therapeutic Services?
Well, we're actually Advanced Therapeutic Services. And we
Advanced, okay.
Yeah, commercial at the end, but yeah, we're Advanced Therapeutic
I needed that.
Yes,
set me straight.
Yeah.
So good.
And we're in Rancho Mirage, and Kristine is one of our group facilitators, a new part of our team, so that's exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we might as well get started now with Kristine. So let's
all right. Well, Josie asked me to talk a little bit about my article, and my article is basically a thumbprint of my dissertation that I literally just finished, and I became a doctor on Friday.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful. So then that introduction was correct, Dr. Kristine.
Yes, and that's the first, second time I've been announced virtually as a doctor. So it's really a big deal. So thank you. I really don't want to start crying. Okay. So, yeah. All right. So I was on hiatus from the PhD program for 8 years, and I decided to go back, and then the pandemic hit. And it was just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do my research on? Because I'm a teaching artist. I'm a performing arts teaching artist. And I'm a professional actor and storyteller. And I've worked in a lot of different milieus, but mostly with K through high school, going into the classroom and doing tons of different types of activities, from poetry slamming to creative writing to improvisation and to podcasting and acting. Well, everything shut down with the pandemic, and it really hit actors hard. And obviously teachers as well, and particularly teaching artists, because the arts are the first thing that are just like, okay, get rid of them. We tried to do some stuff online. It didn't really work. Anyway, I also work part-time as an intake coordinator at a residential treatment center in Palm Springs at Michael's house. And I was like, wow, maybe I can do my research here. And they let me. And I was stunned and shocked and awed and amazed and so happy. because I'd never really worked with adults in improvisation before, and certainly not in an inpatient setting or outpatient setting. So it was really new for me, but not really, because I've been a teaching artist for almost over 20 years, and you go in with the intention of creating a safe environment where people can play and get to know one another in a different way and think in a different way. But I was totally shocked by the findings in the research. I went in there to look at specifically communication and how improvisation impacted communication between patients, or clients, as you call them in your setting. And it was phenomenal. I mean, there were 8 different, in dissertation language, they call it themes. There were 8 different themes that emerged spontaneously in the work, from staying present, from, getting out of my head, to feeling free to be myself, because there was no sense of mistakes. There are no mistakes in improv. You go with yes, and you go with the content that's presented to you and you fly with it. And many more findings came up, like even just laughter, how healing it was for people. So it kind of turned out to be this, and I'm quoting other people who said it because I don't view myself as a therapist, but this cutting edge form of therapy for patients. And the people in outpatient had a very different experience, but similar to the people in inpatient. So it was pretty amazing. Now I'm working at Josie's place, and it's really interesting to work in a different setting. And I think each setting I'm going to go into, there are going to be different challenges. So this particular setting, people are really being pushed to get out of their comfort zones. And I think it's beneficial for all of us, including myself, to get out of our comfort zones. I mean, we're living in a world that is not really comfortable anymore.
Well, it's changing every day. I mean, we've had the biggest shift ever.
Right.
So we've all been forced to get out of our comfort zone on one level or another the last 18 months, I'd say.
Exactly. And learning, that's one of the skills you learn in improv, is flexible thinking and really working that neuroplasticity of the brain. So it's been really interesting to see this process, because the people who have stuck with the workshops have gotten progressively better and better and better. And out of the, I had one girl literally who was a deer in headlights the first workshop. I mean, she was just, and the 4th workshop, she came into the class and she's just like raring to go, and she's
that's great, yeah,
totally present. And so it's just,
this is groundbreaking what you're doing clinically in our industry.
That's what my chair said, and she was like, "Oh, this is so innovative." And yeah, I guess it is. But I did a lot of research looking at other facilities to see if they were using improv at all. And some are doing it a little bit. They do something that I do, which is a kind of a beginning exercise. It's called Bag of Stories. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of objects in it. You pull out an object, and then you tell a story specifically related to your recovery or addiction. Sure. I don't play the game that way. I play it more as, okay, let's broaden our imaginations. Let's all create a group story. Let's use our voices. Let's, really think about the other person and draw them in. So when you're focusing more on performing arts as opposed to a specific theme, as in, addiction, it's very different, because then the art becomes the focus. And then I think in some respects, I'm not saying that it's not important to focus on addiction, but in some respects, it frees people up. And so many people in recovery never got to be children. So, or developmentally, once they started using, everything stopped, So
all their fun, all their,
so it gets to bring them back to something that they may never, ever experience, which can be really threatening and scary for some people. Yeah. So
any type of experiential work, I've been very supportive of experiential work in the treatment centers that I've owned, or even through my own conferences and so forth and workshops with the psychodrama, sociometry, like you said, going the, the equine therapy, anything that you can kind of get out of your body and move your body and help that trauma release, I think is so important. And that's what this reminds me of, a different type of a tool technique for experiential type of therapy. Is that what
it is? And I researched psychodrama extensively in the dissertation because that's the only method other than drama therapy that's been used in treatment settings. But it's very different because psychodrama is really intense.
It's very intense. Yes, it goes straight there. I mean, the therapists are just, they go right there, right?
Yeah, they just cut right through. Okay.
They cut through everything and they.
Yeah, you're talking to the bottle, you're talking to the meth, you're talking to your mother.
You're talking to your aunt, you're talking to all of that.
Yeah, and I'm not really qualified to do that kind of work. But if it comes up in the games we're playing, then we flow with it and work with it. Because the thing about improv is whatever is on your mind is going to come out of your mouth. It just is the nature of the work. So
could you give us a little example of what your group would be like?
Sure. So the group comes together and I incorporate, I did a lot of dance in high school and college, and I've done a lot of meditation and embodied work. So I always start the workshop centering and grounding through some kind of movement and breathing and getting everybody really present. And then we try and loosen up. And I use a lot of different exercises for that, utilizing little yoga techniques or Qigong or stuff I learned in acting school, like even Alexandrian technique or Feldenkrais. I mean, just ways of standing differently. So it just really kind of tweaks everybody's brain to like, okay, that's the only time really in the workshop that they're really inside themselves. And then we come together as a whole group and I'll play really simple icebreaker games, to bring the group together to help them bind, like to help them bond, to help them bind, like the name game where, but in your center, everybody knows each other fairly well. So it's actually very different. And to be perfectly honest, it's a little bit more challenging. Improv is a little easier if people do not know each other.
Okay.
Because then in this way, it takes them a little longer to drop their personas. Because there is a persona.
Yeah.
Everybody's got one to some extent. So we play those games and then I'll do a lot of movement around the room. Walking games, different patterns, moving across the floor. That's more from like dance technique, cutting shapes through the air, and then moving it into characters and environments, playing inside of different environments. And all that's coming from Viola Spolin, who wrote this book about improv a billion years ago. And I use a little Boal, who was the social activist, and a lot of the Geese Theater Company stuff that's in the UK, but that's a whole other conversation. They're fantastic, the games that they play, and they worked mostly in prisons. And then we'll work into skits. Okay. And that's kind of how it is. And then we'll come back and, journal, because I would really like them to try to just look at how they're progressing as they go through the workshop. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's important to journal and reflect on what their experience was at the moment for them, because it was so different than probably anything that most of them have experienced. And that's what makes it unique and exciting.
Nobody else, right? And then I'll try to do member check-ins, during the workshop. Mm-hmm. I need to do more of that. Just saying, hey, how did that feel? How are you doing? And, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So.
Well, very good. So let me see, it says here that you got your doctorate in education with an emphasis on leadership for change.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about that and what your goals are regarding leadership for change.
Well, it's kind of what you just said, that it's innovative, groundbreaking stuff. Okay. And a lot of people who go to fielding are adults returning to school, and they're working in a lot of different environments. And they're, really change agents. They want to bring change into systems that are not working.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. And it's a big social activist kind of school.
Well, with the way things are now in the world and all the changes, how do you feel about everything that's happening right now? Anything that you can give insight on that you think might, I don't know, just with this is what you just completed your doctorate in. It's very interesting to me.
You mean give insight on what's happening in the world?
Yeah, well, how you feel about what's happening, all the changes, the social activism that's going on.
That's a dissertation.
That's a dissertation alone, but I mean, just in general.
You tell me that in like 30 seconds or less.
We've got a few minutes, but just, it's just so interesting to me that that this is your study and this is what we're going through, and how you completed it exactly at the perfect time in the world when we need it.
Well, no, I really can't answer that question, actually, because you get all, people in treatment particularly, they're all races, all backgrounds, all ages, all different spiritual orientations or none, all different political views.
Yes.
So, I remember a workshop at Michael's house that happened, and we were playing roles, and one guy decided he wanted to be Hitler. Mm-hmm. And one of the patients came up to me and goes, he's being Hitler. He's being Hitler. And I'm like, yeah, so, who are you? So it's very inclusive. Mm-hmm. It's not like because somebody brings up a different idea or a controversial idea, it's like, oh, we're going to all stop and process this. We're all going to flow with it and see where it goes.
Well, I think that, and that's so important a message right now, I think, because everybody seems to be putting each other in boxes.
Yes.
Really,
there's no boxes in this.
Yeah. Good.
Yes. Yeah. And that's always been very frustrating for me, and a real challenge for me as a teaching artist and an actor and a storyteller and everything I've been interested in doing, is that I kept trying to fit myself into a box. So this has been so liberating for me to just get this dissertation and go, hey, this stuff, your stuff, bring it out to the world, okay? And bring other people into it, train other people. But I think those are the two things, is like, because when people are thinking differently and they don't agree with one another necessarily, then they're out of their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. But they're all just playing. So they're not really thinking about it so much. Mm-hmm. They're just flowing with it.
Right.
And they can't be defended, because if you're defended, you've shut down all the play or any interaction. And then everybody in the group gets really upset. It's like, I was having a really good time here. Why are you being such a buzzkill?
Yeah, that's true. You can't have a high vibration, a low vibration, whatever. Like, you be joyful and then be, defensive at the same time. You can't.
Yeah, or together. But it became funny in some workshops when there was somebody like they do the same thing over and over in every game, and then everybody would just like, oh yeah, well there's Ray doing and then we just go on.
Right. And that was his role. That was his role, right?
That was his role, exactly. So, and you're right, it's absolutely low and high vibration.
Yeah.
And what you want to eventually move to is that the phenomenal thing about improv, it's very difficult to learn, but once you've really learned it, then you create a group mind. Mm-hmm. And that's the sociometry that, Moreno talks about. Mm-hmm. And then there's nobody in and there's nobody out. You're all in it together, and it's one mind. And that is phenomenal, because then you're in that zone and everything's flowing, which is what, you've experienced probably in your classes and meditation and prayer, but to experience in a group that's playing, it's really phenomenal to experience that.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us and speaking tonight, because again, this is cutting edge stuff. It's brand new, and congratulations on that. I think it takes so much courage to do something brand new like this. So I honor you for that. And I'm thrilled that you're working over at our place at Advanced Therapeutic Services, so that we're outpatient. So you can work with some of our clients. And
I'm honored to be there. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm gonna bring up Carolyn, and then we're gonna bring you up at the end. Oops, there, Kristine. We're gonna bring you up at the end. Hi, Carolyn.
Hey, Josie.
Debbie's fast tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to talk a little bit about you. You're Carolyn Gross. This is your first time on our Recoveryview platform, and I know that you are an international speaker. You're founder of Creative Life Solutions, you're an award-winning speaker, patient advocate, and author of 4 books. Carolyn is a researcher on how to live and manage adversity that fuels her as a speaker. Now, your books are Rise Above the Chaos, Treatable and Beatable, Staying Calm in the Midst of Chaos, Breaking the Cancer Code, A Revolutionary Approach to Cancer. And personally, you have been my coach, and I want to thank you for that. And I'm just going to go ahead and say that because you're helping me finish the book that I've been writing, and it's been phenomenal. I love the work that you do. So welcome to the show, Carolyn, and thank you for the article that you put together for us as our spotlight, Turning Obstacles into Opportunities.
Well, don't we have our work cut out for us today?
You do. Sure do. Go for it, Carolyn, please.
Well, I want to segue as well, because I felt like I was at the actor's studio as I was listening to Kristine, which is awesome but when she was talking about a different way and using improv, that's been my approach to chaos for all these years of research. And the stance that I took was, I'm going to look at chaos as the great teacher. So that when adverse situations happen, like you find out you've got an addiction problem or you don't have coping skills, so you revert to all these destructive modes and your life is crashing and burning, what are you going to do? Are you going to say life's horrible, where's the bridge? Or are you going to say, well, wait a minute. Does it really have to be this way? And what can I learn from this crisis? And what I love about recovery and the addiction field is that when people have an experience that they have the disease of addiction and they get sober, they already have the greatest asset to go and live from, so that when chaos or crisis show up in their life in any of the myriad forms that it will and does, they now have something called, mastery of experience. If they overcome addiction or, near-death experiences because of crisis and behaviors, and they survive and learn from it, they now have a character asset and something that can give them strength for the next adversity. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense. That's our muscles. Our experiences help us grow. So with your techniques, you help show people, and especially right now, I think we were talking about what an important time again after post-pandemic and the last 18 months, how your work is very important for our audiences.
And this is where, for people that are helping people in recovery and people that are in recovery themselves, I recently heard something, and all the great minds, what do? They share with each other. But I loved this. I recently heard this. I can have a conscious contact with God or a higher power, a higher source, or I can have an unconscious contact with my character defects.
Yeah. That's absolutely true.
I've never heard that before, and I'm like, that is so cool, because it takes, right now, as we're facing all this adversity and all these obstacles, our mindset is our greatest asset. On top of the experiences that we've been through and we've conquered, right now our mindset is our greatest asset. And people that work with addicts have to realize that that disease is going to tell them, in the midst of really great accomplishments, that disease is going to tell them terrible things, And so some people, their slippery slope wasn't the rough moments, when a child is diagnosed or has a broken leg or whatever. It's the successful moments that they can't embrace and that they can't hold on to. So there's so much to learn, through adversity, but we can also, if we've had a painful life or early life, or things that came in midlife that surprised us and derailed us, we have to start to realize, like, we deserve for good things to happen. And especially when we've sort of been in victim mentality as a country and as a planet. People have been a victim of COVID, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So our work's cut out for us right now. And one thing I like to remind people is that people have had a lot of adversity and hardships. Baby, now's your time to shine. Because people who haven't, people are used to just a life of, one wonderful event and one wonderful child and one wonderful, degree after the next. They've never been shook to the core. People that have had a lot of chaos and obstacles have actually got a lot to give to the world right now.
That's right. Their resiliency, right?
Yeah.
A lot about resiliency.
Their resiliency. Go ahead.
Yeah. They're right now, it seems like, I don't know, I don't want to but there's to me, it seems like there's an entire generation that just hasn't seen anything, like a World War II or World War I, and, even Vietnam. There's a young generation that haven't been shook to the core. And they're the ones that I see right now through this actually struggling, but yet finding themselves. I mean, starting their businesses, doing, deciding whether they're going to continue with education or not. I don't know. It's just interesting how it's something for a lot of the young adults that haven't really had any, any major things happen in the last 20, 30 years of their life. This is something that's affecting them in a different way. And it's interesting to watch that. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, first of all, a lot of, it depends on what part of the, mosaic you're in, but there's so much digital life for younger people, and the thing is real versus imagined. And so one of the greatest ways to be able to get through trepidatious white, like we called this year, especially the initial, lockdown, it was white water environment, just rapids. Like there is no grounding, there's no safe harbor to tie your raft up to. So when times happen like that, and there's chaos and crisis and defining moments in people's lives that are very much like this, when those times happen, the only thing you have to ground yourself with is that you have discernment and you know the truth. And there's an expression, if you know the truth will set you free. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. But if you're learning all of life not through direct experiences, it's hard to find truth. So this direct experience of a pandemic, I agree with you. It's huge for showing younger people what can happen. But I've interviewed a lot of teachers lately in my speaking since I've been out in the world again. Thank you, wonderful God. And I keep meeting teachers and I keep interviewing them because they took on an enormous load, just like the essential workers in the hospitals and anything medical, and in your world too, because you were very busy.
Yeah.
You were not an industry that dried up and didn't have, had to lock your doors. No. Mm-hmm. And so the teachers were taking on this, distance learning, and then children lost social skills, and they're basically saying everybody lost a year.
Right. That's what I've
been in that world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe we all lost a year truly. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But if you were able to use it as an evaluative year, I've really never had time out to evaluate, how much do I like this part of my life, or this, association that I'm part of, or this commitment that I've made. You know, how much do I like? The best thing any of us can do, and we can still do it right now, is still be just evaluating how do we want to re-enter and reestablish ourselves, because the world's not going back the exact same way. It's going to be hybrid world, you know. It's not going to be the same. We now have a sticker on our name tag. Do you hug or do you not?
Right, right. And that's not even to mention the questions of everything else, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
And
the questions, the questionnaire that we have to, you know, when we meet with people, or the nervousness. I have a conference coming up. I mentioned to you the end of this month. It's here in La Quinta, because I'm here in the desert, and I'm looking forward to it. But I'm also a little nervous because, you know, there's going to be a lot of people there, and it's just going to be different. I haven't been to a conference in almost 2 years, so.
Well, isn't it wonderful? You have a coach who knows a lot about the immune system, so she can give you all kinds of ideas on what to do before, during, and after. Because all my public work that I do, I'm doing extra precautions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to be, you know, I call it surround sound safe.
Right.
You know, but again, realize your mindset is your greatest asset. We don't want to drop into fear. And the other thing, you know, I worked with cancer patients, and I was in a hospital setting, and, you know, people would fly in from all over to work with this doctor in this center. And, you know, loved ones would come, and they would have the cold or the flu. And the minute I had this surround sound hearing to be able to pick up on this for those 15 years that I did this medical work. And one of the things was, if I heard somebody coughing or, you know, blowing their nose a certain way, I'd be like, they're not, you know, they've got a virus, or something's not right. I would social distance, and I would even have to be very direct. And I would say, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to walk at least 6 feet behind me, and never in front of me, because, you know, their breathing I would then be walking into. And they would look at me like, the other lady said somebody was playing Hitler. They would look at me like I was like Hitlerine, you know, and I would be like,
Hitlerine.
Hitlerine. That's my improv moment for the day. Kristine can grade me later. But anyway, you know, the whole point was setting boundaries, you know, because that'll give you confidence too. And if you notice somebody doesn't, you know, feel well, just you step back, and if they start following you. But I'm getting carried away there on that point. But things are different, and the world. By the way, here's another one I love. The world was turned upside down during COVID, so that everybody on the bottom now has a preferred placement.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's true. And then, or everybody's just, you know, on the same page right now.
Right.
We're all
I
equal.
think so.
Yeah, in a sense, because we've all experienced this at the same time, almost like what Kristine was saying, how, you know, in the group, when you can all be one, that's what the world is. In a sense, we've all experienced one event. We all know what it's like, and countries are rolling, you know, into their different times, like Australia right now and New Zealand, they're totally locked down, where we were that a year ago. So it's still happening in different places around the world. But it's a new thing for people, and it is a time for reflection, I would say.
It absolutely is. And also, you know, behavioral scientists have said for years that it's after a physical disruption or a defining moment, crisis in one's life, that the greatest potential for change is at the fore. Well, you know this because of the work you're doing, but I think this is a good reminder for all of us with COVID. And what that means is, when those big major shifts come and those physical disruptions come, the old behaviors surface. The ones that are hidden by the persona, as Kristine was saying, they all of a sudden get loosened up within the psyche. And we can work that to our advantage. When old behaviors, especially like really old stuff, right? When that stuff comes up, we can go, oh, wow. Instead of feeling victimized by it, or, oh, I thought I'd healed that, or what's wrong with me? We can go, oh, look at that. That's what the next thing I need to be working on.
Yeah, I think a lot of those old things have come up through this process, through this time. I know for me, they have in so many ways. It's just, you know,
and I think
because any trauma will trigger old stuff. So here it comes. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's given us an opportunity. So it's called the power of a fresh start.
Yeah.
When it really gets shook hard, it's the power of a fresh start. And before I even read this book by Katie Milkman called How to Change, I was changing my brand a little bit because I've always been rise above the chaos, but all of a sudden, about three or 4 months into lockdown, I went, oh no, rise above the chaos. Now is the time to redefine. It was just one of those, all my titles are art because they just come from that mysterious place, right? But all of a sudden, now is the time to redefine came to me. And once I started to investigate it, is now really the time to redefine? I went, oh Lord, it is. And as you know, I made a major move, after being in San Diego for 40 years. And as I was moving out of both an office and a home, I was walking out the door and I go, okay, girl, walk your talk, because I had already put it on the website. Now is the time to redefine. Because as a leader in your field, you have to go through the paces before and show people no, it really does work. It really does work to change everything or believe you're bigger than where you are now and grow into it. Take that big risky step forward.
Well, that's how it was for our treatment center, because I had to make a decision as soon as this happened. Other treatment centers on the outpatient were closing because of COVID. I never even considered closing because I knew that our clients needed us most right now. They were still suicidal. The overdose rates were higher. People were drinking at home. So we stayed open. But what a decision that was, as the owner, and all the things that I had to do, the responsibilities. But I'm glad we did, because we've able to, be here for the community. But it was, an interesting time because we grew during that time, but it was something that we just had to shift what we were doing in so many ways, and focus, and there was no more travel. Everything was different. We had to change our practice completely for safety and all the things that we were doing. And that alone, now I look back and go, because we have our accreditation coming this week, and so we're reviewing everything. And yeah. So, but that's the time of review, and I'm thinking, wow, we really did a lot. And now we're all coming up, and I'm just sharing my part in this part. But I think all of us have gone through this, however we readapted to our new lives, and we're here. Thank God. Thank God that for those of us, and prayers for those families who've lost people during this last 18 months. But for those of us that survived it, we're still here, and there's so much that we have to share with the world, I believe, and that's part of the miracles of recovery, I think.
Well, and the people that did lose loved ones, now is the time to redefine, because their life has already been edited, and so even in their grief, they've got to find a way to, position themselves to go on and live a meaningful life. Because, we say it all the time, but, your loved ones want you to be happy. They've exited the building, but they don't want you suffering.
Yeah.
Love is eternal. Again, this all depends on people's belief systems. I am right there with you. As a matter of fact, October 30th really marks this huge turning point that I had, and I'm going to celebrate. I know it's not Halloween or anything, but I'm just going to I knew now is the time to redefine, and what I did, like you, this last year was enormous. So how do we use that moving forward? The way we use that moving forward is whatever is around the bend. And that's another thing we learned from this experience is, as much as we think we can figure out trends, and for all those people who had their retirement package all planned out, and I'm going to work, and then they got furloughed,
Right.
or the company just, we're no longer going to have that division. So many people's lives were dramatically affected. And for all of us who reinvented and repurposed, and again, hats off for the businesses that had to do all the, regulations and all this health stuff. And, it's just been huge, but we have to be proud of ourselves to have tackled it the way that, a proactive, awake and aware person is. Again, going back to what happens when people recover, you have self-awareness and you have character assets now. And, if you really go to, make your life matter each and every day, you realize if I'm having a terrible day, I'm the one creating it. It's my reaction to chaos or all this change. And how quickly can I get over the discomfort? Or if I'm angry about the way certain things still haven't opened up or given us the freedom we once knew. But we have to, I even have daytimer training as part of my arsenal. And and let's all laugh because I'm a creative soul, and so I don't live and die by the clock exactly. But the thing is, one of the key responses they taught in time management was there are events you cannot control. And the key response to an event you cannot control was adapt and move on. In other words, don't focus on what you lost or what changed, but focus on what you have that power to do and move forward with it. So,
well, that is definitely an empowering message. And I want to thank you for, oh, good. I was going to ask Debbie to put up your website because that wasn't up there. So creativelifesolutions.com is where they would go find you, right?
That's right.
Books and tell me what is it that you do in your workshops? And I know that you teach and of course you coach, but you also are an international speaker. So how could somebody find you if they wanted to? Yeah.
Well, so of course, Creative Life Solutions has everything, on the programs that I do. I did start doing online work during the pandemic because I couldn't go out and speak for over a year and a half. And who I really created my programs for, Josie, were the leaders. Because I felt like it's the leaders. I could have been a leadership speaker for all this time, but I was more health, stress management, and, motivation. Okay. But obviously when I got into health, it was pretty serious health, like, immunotherapy and, reversing cancer and then, how to overcome and conquer those obstacles. So that's been my lane, but I never went just for the leaders. And now I've worked and do online programs for people that are redefining their lives. So life transition, redefining your lives, and also people that are health professionals. And, to me, you're a health professional.
Yes, we're considered a health.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. And that's my favorite. That's my sweet spot. I do have business executives and different people over the years because I've been doing this for 25 years. But my sweet spot now is really helping leaders and people in life transition redefine their lives and lead.
Wonderful.
With power.
That's great. We love it. We have to have the power. So I'm going to invite Kristine back up so we can all chat for a minute as we wrap up. Can you believe it's almost been an hour? This has gone so fast, and we weren't sure if we could, and
yeah, Carolyn, that was fascinating. You covered so much in what you just said. I mean, saying yes to the mess, the chaos, and that when you had so many obstacles in your life that it really moved me, that it was like, now is the time for those people, that have built that level of resiliency and flexibility. And that the people that have been living on this very set trajectory their whole life, that whole narrative for most people, not everyone, fell away. So, and that's been kind of coming down the pike for a while now. And the kids coming up, I mean, it's digital and this, that, and they're starting their own businesses, but they're under incredible pressure with with climate change. So this thing with the pandemic coupled with climate change, with immigration, with systemic racism, I mean, everything has been revealed now that's not working, So I love, that both of you are talking about mindset and that this is the opportunity for people to build, to reinvent themselves, to create a bigger picture of what you think your life is going to be and walk into it. I just love that you said that. It's very spiritual.
Yay!
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting that at all in this talk.
Well, that's so great. And I love that I feel like tonight's show was very empowering, and that we did stay on, the positive, and that's what recovery is. So, it tied into the celebration of Recovery Month, because recovery is the change, right? It's changing. It's the metamorphosis from somebody's life, of addiction or eating disorder or anything, codependency, when we can just kind of get to the other side and change. And that's been our topic tonight, and how important it is. And for I honor those who are in recovery and who have been able to stick with it through these last 18 months. And even if they would fall to the side and come back, it's been a tough time for everybody, and especially for those who are in recovery, because they're already, but when this first happened, what I actually told my clients, I remember going in when everything was such a mess, and like those of us that had that, knew exactly the way our lives, we were the ones a mess. And I said, you guys we're learning from you, because you literally just, you're used to living on, on the street or doing, nothing's like, there's nothing that, you can predict. And so you have the skills, we are melting down. So we're all in the same place, because the first couple months, most of us were just like, what is happening? And the addicts and the ones that have mental health, they were like, oh man, this is my time.
Right.
No
problem.
Nothing's changed.
I can't stand doing Zoom. We're not going to do an AA meeting on Zoom. Forget about it.
I have more mentally imbalanced friends I can meet now. Oh my gosh, the population is growing.
I know. So it's been quite a wonderful experience, and but the contribution that you two wonderful women have given to this industry and to our planet, I just want to honor you both for that, because just like Kristine stepped out, and so have you, Carolyn, for many years with topics that are so important, and your books and everything that you do for us. So.
Well, and a PhD celebration, my goodness, Kristine, I'm doing a happy dance for you.
Dr. Kristine Waters.
Dr. Kristine is in the house.
Yeah, I'm in the house.
And that's even a moment too, when what's wonderful is, here's a paradigm shift. You know how when people were like a little farther ahead, oh, she has a PhD, I don't. This new world we're in, it's like celebrate everybody's success. Oh my God. And the differences. So I celebrate for you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been years. And to take 8 years off and then come back and finish, that is wonderful. Wow.
Yeah, and I don't think I could have done it if there hadn't been a pandemic.
That's right.
Because I was also working like you, Josie. I was still working in treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So it just, it hasn't really sunk in. I don't know. I'm not really attached to the letters, but everybody said you need them. You need them. It'll help. It'll open a few doors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Open a few doors.
It will.
There's a doctor in the house.
That's right.
It'll help you get a table for dinner. I'm Kristine Waters, and I'd like reservations.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. Just Dr. Waters,
Dr. Waters.
Lose the first name,
That's right, Dr. Waters.
You no longer are Kristine, you're just Dr. Waters.
Wait.
That's right.
I need to change my name. Wait a minute. Doctor. All right, there we go.
Your monogram.
There you go, Dr. Waters.
Oh my God. All right. Thanks.
I love it. Okay. Now, I just want to thank you ladies again, and remind everybody that we'll have our next edition. It should be in December for the holidays. I'd like to do a holiday edition. I know Beverly's right there. So our next edition will be our holiday edition. And otherwise, you can catch me Thursday nights for Drama to Dharma, which is my live show on Thursday. And you can go to recoveryview.com. I'm going to have a commercial come up with our sponsor information, and then we'll say a few more words at the end. So thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening. It's
Thank
been
you,
a
Josie.
wonderful show, and for contributing to our 58th edition.
Thank you, Josie.
Okay, so that's our commercial for Advanced Therapeutic Services. And as I mentioned, my husband Jim and I own that, and we're Rancho Mirage, California. We're in network with most insurances, and effective in October, we will be able to accept Medi-Cal patients. So we're very excited about that. We have our in-person outpatient for day treatment and intensive outpatient assessments and so forth for adults and adolescents, and we also have telehealth. So if you're not able to come in, we do offer the telehealth. And I want to thank all of our authors tonight for our recovery view, and especially Carolyn and Kristine for being on our show. Please go to recoveryview.com and read their articles and all the other articles that are there. And you can reach out to them if you have any questions directly, and they can, they can answer those for you. We have their emails and everything on their articles. So thank you all for joining us tonight, and we will see you for our holiday edition. Good night.